there's 4 or 5 misconceptions that leaders often have about appreciation. One is that it's the same as employee recognition, which is largely group-based, sort of structured according to the company, and it's always about performance. And so done some project or hit a milestone or whatever, and it's very public. Whereas appreciation, we believe, is about the person. And it can include performance, but employees are people. They're not just production units. And we have characteristics that are of value that don't necessarily show up in, what we produce or get done. And people like to be valued for that. And I think that's especially true for younger generations, that they want to be viewed holistically versus just, getting tasks done.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Leading with Integrity podcast. Have you ever heard of the 5 love languages? You probably have, and you may be wondering why I'm talking about this on a podcast about leadership, business and entrepreneurs, management, culture. Love languages maybe aren't the best thing for the workplace. One might think. Well, my guest today literally wrote the book on applying these principles to the workplace to create better culture and to be a better leader. He's sort of rebranded them, renamed them, made them workplace appropriate by calling them now instead the 5 languages of appreciation. His name is Dr. Paul White. He'll be sharing stories from his extensive career journey as a psychologist, as a consultant, the work that he did with neurodivergence in the workplace, with family businesses, and of course about his 5 languages of appreciation and why it's so important to show appreciation in a productive, positive way in the workplace and the benefits that can give to your leadership, to the culture of your team. It's a great conversation. If you've got any interest in psychology or workplace culture, you don't want to miss out on this one. Do, of course, as always, listen to the end to hear details about Paul's website, where to get a copy of the book, etc. And if you are new to leadership and management, if you're feeling that loneliness at the top, you're feeling that isolation, perhaps you've had a bad experience with a boss in the past, but you are determined not to carry that forward into your own approach, then reach out, please. I would love to hear from you and talk leadership with you. You can find my LinkedIn details down in the show notes. Drop me a message anytime, or you can visit the website, which is on the screen and in the show notes as well. You can even sign up for the Integrity Leaders community if you wish, where you will find online connections with other new leaders, first-time managers, learning, courses, resources, all aimed at new leaders, first-timers who want to be better than the last bad boss they had. So do click on those links and reach out today. I'd love to hear from you.
Welcome to the Leading with Integrity podcast. Leadership talk for the modern manager. With your host, David Hatch.
I'm joined today by Dr. Paul White. Welcome, Paul. Lovely to have you on the show. Looking forward to our conversation.
Thanks. Glad to be with you.
Going to push you in at the deep end, I'm afraid, to kick us off. Tell us about your career journey so far. What you do, why you do it.
Okay. Well, I'm a psychologist by training. I'm towards the end of my career, hopefully. And I started out working with students doing evaluations of students with learning difficulties, ADHD, dyslexia, autism, that kind of thing. And did that actually pretty much throughout my career. But mid-career, I grew up in the context of a family-owned business outside of Kansas City in the Midwest in the U.S. And some friends of mine knew that and were consulting with family-owned businesses, and they kept running into family issues that intersected and created problems with the business. And so I started traveling around and working as part of a team to deal with family issues, usually around business succession, leadership, ownership issues, and addressing the family issues, doing that. About 10 or so years into that, I was in North Carolina working with a family-owned business and talking to the dad, and I asked him how the business succession plan was going. He said, it's fine. My son's stepping up. I think it'll work. I walk across the hall and ask the son the same question. He said, this is a disaster. It's never going to work. I can't ever please my dad. And so that was, and I could understand that dynamic. So my wife and I were reading The 5 Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman at that time, which is focused on personal relationships. And I thought, I wonder if these concepts could work in business. And so I pursued Dr. Chapman. It took me a year to get through his sort of bulldog assistant, but pitched the idea, and he agreed and had been thinking about it and agreed to work together. So taking the 5 love languages, turn it into the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace, and wrote the book, developed an online assessment, which, I don't know, 450,000 people have taken now worldwide. We've sold 800,000 books, and that's in 20 or more languages, and then developed some training materials to help people teach their team members how to show appreciation to one another in a way that's meaningful. So I've been doing that the last 15 years, and it's been fun. Learn a lot, get to learn about different kinds of businesses and organizations, government agencies, schools, all that kind of thing. So that's sort of what I've been doing.
Some very cool stuff, definitely. There's several really interesting things in there that we could pick into. So let's start with your earlier career. So the neurodivergence work and ADHD in particular. I mean, that feels like something that we hear a lot more about now than we do,
Right.
than we did even like 5-10 years ago.
Hmm.
And it's great to have someone who actually has a bit of expert knowledge on this to answer this question for me. Is why is that? Is it a case of it being more kind of normalized, I suppose is the word, or are there better diagnostic tools now? Is it increasing? Like, are more people just having it? Like, what's the answer there? Is there one?
Well, there's probably multiple answers, and it may differ a bit depending who you talk to. But so I started back in the 80s doing this, and at that time, it wasn't well known, and the prevalence rate was about 3% of the population, mainly actually 3% of boys and about 1.5% of girls or women. And then we've learned more over time and become more aware of the symptoms. We're also less shy about having some kind of psychological issue. Culturally, it's more acceptable, less shame about that. So I think that's a piece. There's some research. I mean, clearly the prevalence has increased to about 10% of the population. And sort of the two big dog researchers, Hallowell and Rady, came out with a book a few years ago where they talked about cultural ADHD that we've created, which they view as different than hardcore physiological ADHD, because there's a physiological component, and related to screen time and both TV and computer. And so we've sort of shortened the attention span and impulse control of our young people. So I think it's sort of a both and answer.
No, that's very interesting, especially the screen time. And I mean, social media kind of helped as well, like just the way the algorithm works, all of that,
Right.
instant gratification culture and everything. It's, yeah, I don't know what the answer to that is, though. Does anyone know what the answer to that is?
Well, in the U.S. currently, there's a big movement of not allowing cell phones in the schools during the school day, and that they're actually restricting that. So that's a good first start for sure, I think. And then there's segments of the population where there's parental movement towards, limiting screen time, like during the school week, and then just having it on the weekends as far as gaming and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that reminds me, actually, I was reading last week, I think it was, about, I can't remember if it was Australia or New Zealand, somewhere like that, where they
it was
are
Australia.
introducing a law, aren't they, to ban social media use under the age of 16.
Yeah.
And I've already seen a great, like the internet is brilliant for creating jokes out of current events, isn't it? So there's a great joke I saw yesterday about under 16s in Australia turning to LinkedIn now that they're not allowed on other social medias.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, it's a bit of a worry for LinkedIn, I imagine. But yeah, no, that's really interesting though, and it's good to hear a bit of the actual science behind it as opposed to what we get from social media.
Yeah.
And so the second part of your career, like the working with family businesses. So I have a bias in this one about business and use of the word family. So when it's not an actual family business, it becomes like this horribly toxic cliche when bosses say, we're a family here and all that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Is that different if it is actually a family business, do you think? Is that, or does that create its own problems?
No, it is different because essentially you have people that have known each other for, years, if not decades. They have a common history. They have somewhat of a common culture, which is, but not always, which creates some of the challenges. And there are, emotional dynamics. I mean, because a conversation within a family has a different quality typically than a business conversation. And there's certain rules and boundaries that you aren't supposed to cross in business conversations, but which get blurred in family conversations. So, for example, my older brother worked directly for my father, and so in one conversation, my dad might be talking to my brother as CEO, founder to vice president. Okay, and so in that context, a business leader can tell a directive to a subordinate what they should do. Probably as a father to an adult son, that dynamic should change. Like, we're all going to go, on vacation together, do this in the direct, which actually happened in that family I was working with. And so there's just sort of different rules and dynamics that enter in that create some challenges. And then you have family members who've been around the business who have sort of psychological ownership, but they don't really own anything, but they have input because they've been around and they maybe even work there or currently. And whereas they don't really have any legal right to give input about decisions about, business direction or indebtedness and that kind of thing.
I guess it depends on the family, doesn't it? But it's always struck me from the outside. I've never even worked for or in a family-owned business, but it's always kind of seemed to me, apart from having pretty much guaranteed job security, because it's the family, like what are they going to do, evict you from the family as well? Seems unlikely. There's something, I don't know, it feels not quite right to me that you just because of the family you're born into, that then dictates the job you're going to have and the company you're going to work for. And I'm sure there is choice, but then there's also maybe not so much choice as there could be. There's probably the cultural aspect there, isn't there? I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah. I mean, if you look back over the centuries, that's actually how often young people got their career, is that they worked for their dad on the farm or in the shop or whatever. And so it was pretty natural. One of the dynamics is, what do you do with a son or a daughter who's not really pulling their weight in the company and it's affecting the rest of the employees or whatever? I mean, do you fire your kid, which is a difficult issue to work through. So yeah, that's, you sort of put your finger on some of the challenges.
Yeah, and I suppose the other big one is the opposite direction, isn't it? What does the kid who doesn't want to work in the family business do? Like, how do they tell their parents without crushing disappointment and being disowned or whatever?
Or even grandkids. I mean, I worked with a major farm implement company here in the U.S., and they had grandkids that were quite artistic and musical, and that was sort of their talent, and they wanted to head that way career-wise, which didn't really fit into the mechanical company, and so I challenged that way.
I probably have empathy for the kids in that situation. I mean, the parents too, because it must be quite difficult and confronting if you've worked your whole life to build a business up to hand on to the next generation, and they're like, no thanks.
Yeah, or that you see, I mean, there's that part, but also that they would potentially have an easier direction or path for life material success with this already going business, and you keep it going versus trying to create something new. So
True. Yeah, that is true. Right. So let's talk about the 5 love languages. I'm hoping there's some considerable reworking for the business world, because there's one of them at least I know, which is touch,
yeah.
which feels like in a business context is just going to cause all sorts of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us, what are the 5 languages of appreciation, and then what do they look like in a workplace context?
Yeah, so they're the same in name as the 5 love languages. So words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, tangible gifts, and yes, physical touch. And part of what we learned over time is that in the workplace, just knowing the language of appreciation is really not sufficient, because sometimes talk about dialects. I mean, that there's different actions that people value within that language. So, for example, words in the US, we have a lot of sort of reward recognition events, kind of things where people are called up front and given accolades in front of other people. Well, we found that about 40% of the workforce in the US um, absolutely doesn't want to go up in front of a group to be recognized. And so while they might like hearing some kind of praise or compliment, they don't like it in the way that it's being done. And so we've developed in our assessment not only identifying what language a person has, but the specific actions that they like, and even from whom. So, for example, quality time, historically, it's been sort of individual personal time with your manager or your supervisor. And that's true for older employees, but for younger employees, it's become more hanging out with your colleagues and your peers. And so again, you might get the language right, but I tell older leaders, just because one of your team members has quality time as their language doesn't mean they want time with you. You may be wonderful, you may be great, but that's not really what they want. They want to go out to lunch or out for to watch a sporting event or something with their colleagues. So, and then acts of service is not really rescuing a person that's not getting their work done, but some people live by the mantra of, don't tell me you support me, show me, or words are cheap. And unless you do something actively to help them out, that doesn't as meaningful to them. So for them, an example might be working on a project that's got a time deadline and they're working really hard to try to meet that. What's something you do that could help out? Either, take over a small part that they give to you to do, or answer the phone or their emails so they can stay focused on the project and that kind of thing. Tangible gifts is not bonuses or raises. That's really sort of the employer-employee contract. But it's just small things to show that you're getting to know your colleagues and what they like. So one theme for us around appreciation is that it's really about the person, not just performance. We can talk about that. And it's also person to person. So it's not top down in the organization. Usually employee recognition is sort of like either from the C-suite or through HR, whatever. And, it's sort of formal. This is just informal day to day. And really we focus on teaching team members, colleagues, how to show appreciation to one another in ways that are meaningful. So it could be bringing in their favorite cup of coffee in the morning for them. This is a little extra, or that they like a certain football team, and so you found an article about the coach or a new player, and you bring that in for them, or they're gonna start a garden and they've never done that before, and you know some about that, and or have a website you can give to them. It doesn't have to cost anything really. And then physical touch is the one that raises eyebrows. But interestingly, it's as we work internationally, because we work in over 60 countries and our materials in our several languages, for Latin American friends or Southern Europeans, Greece, Spain, Portugal, they're more physical in just how they relate to one another. And so to not touch each other, even in greeting, because, they sort of kiss on the cheek kind of thing, feels very cold and impersonal to them. So, and we didn't include the physical touch in our assessment because of really a high negative reactivity from some people that, been sexually harassed or whatever. But we mainly focus on it as spontaneous celebration. I mean, it's a high five when you finish a project, maybe a fist bump of, um, solving a problem, a congratulatory handshake, that kind of thing. So it's very culturally determined, but it's important in some cultures.
Yeah, that is a good point. It's I can see why it would raise eyebrows. Yeah, I can see HR managers all over the place falling out of their chair at that sort of thing. But
yeah, we're gonna get sued.
yeah,
No, but we talk about, that the recipient is the one who determines what's appropriate. It's
yeah.
not, I mean, I was in Europe, summer or so ago speaking, and I had someone at the end say, "Oh, I need to give you a hug," and I thought, yeah, I sort of need you to not need to give me a hug, but, uh, it would have been inappropriate for me to sort of say no. So, it was okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling very British all of a sudden.
Yeah, we talk in the U.S. We have sort of the Northeast New York and so forth that they're far more not touchy. We're in the South. They give side hugs, and
Yeah,
in California there's type of bro hug that they talk about, that's sort of a greeting. So anyway.
Yeah, I guess it's like many things, isn't it? The context and knowing the
Yep.
individuals and their backgrounds and what their preferences are and all those sort of things, all of which any good leader is doing anyway.
Hopefully.
But I mean, the whole concept around showing appreciation and having effective tools to do that, I think is really important, because there's so many leaders, managers who, I mean, you said earlier, talk is cheap. Especially when things aren't going so well, like if you've got some sort of problem in the company or there's a culture issue or a target's been missed or something, I think that's when we default into this sort of the grand speech on the hill sort of approach.
Right.
And it usually, in my experience, lands pretty flat if that's all you do.
Yeah. And, one of the things that we've identified that there's 4 or 5 misconceptions that leaders often have about appreciation.
Mhm.
One is that it's the same as employee recognition, that which is largely group-based, sort of structured according to the company, and it's always about performance. And so, they've done some project or hit a milestone or whatever, and it's very public. Whereas appreciation, we believe, is about the person. And it can include performance, but employees are people. They're not just production units. And we have characteristics that are of value that don't necessarily show up in, what we produce or get done. And people like to be valued for that. And I think that's especially true for younger generations, that they want to be viewed holistically versus just, getting tasks done. And that also it's not appreciation isn't necessarily top down. Recognition is. I mean, it comes through the organization according to the org chart. But one of the cool things that we've found out is that people like to show appreciation to their colleagues and coworkers across departments. If somebody in IT helps your computer work with a new program, you want to show appreciation for that, even though they don't report to you, you don't report to them. And leaders need to be shown appreciation at times as well. I mean, that's helpful, but in a recognition model, that doesn't happen. So, and also, really, most leaders feel like, how can I, show appreciation to everybody? It's sort of too much weight and responsibility. So it really works to teach team members to take responsibility and share the load. And so that works better that way. Yeah. So, helping people think accurately about it helps sort of get past some initial barriers, at least.
Yeah, I like the contrast there to recognition, because recognition feels like the sort of the rare occurrence, the when something's gone really well sort of thing, whereas appreciation is more everyday, sort of the routine, making everyone feel part of the whole, which is,
we found
Sorry,
that the top 10 or 15% in any organization, maybe a unit or a department, are the ones that tend to get recognized, and often repeatedly. And that leaves a big group of 40 to 50% in the middle. Good people working hard. They're not necessarily your stars, but they're solid, and they don't hear anything. And one of the practical impacts, and I guess that's another misconception, that the goal of appreciation isn't just to help people feel good. That's nice when that happens, but the real purpose from an organizational point of view is that it helps the organization work better. It's sort of like, use example of oil and machine. You have a machine, parts are working closely together, and there's friction to create some tension and maybe heat resistance, and appreciation helps the parts work together better. And we have research, chapter 2 of our book, we have over 50 research citations to show that when team members feel valued, they show up on time, they call in sick less often, they follow policies and procedures more consistently. A big one right now is that they don't leave the company. So retention is there. It also makes a culture that's easier to recruit people, and that helps clear communication, and productivity and profitability increase. In fact, there's research among some of the major banks in the U.S., Goldman Sachs and so forth, showing that there's a difference between two companies that really pay attention to workplace culture and relationships and those that don't. And those that do are more profitable. So from an investment point of view, it makes sense as well.
Yeah, there's a couple of studies a while back around like happiness as well, and productivity. And sometimes you come across these studies and you're like, that's obvious, isn't it? Why did we need to look at, of course, happy people are going to be more productive, right? I mean, is that not obvious? But then at the same time, I'm glad somebody bothered. Like,
most business leaders don't, it's like, I want my employees to be happy, but that's their own responsibility. In fact, I mean, I reacted here in the U.S. on, we had what we call the left coast, the West Coast. And for a while, and maybe still, they had positions of chief happiness officer. And I'm like, give me a break. I mean, I'm as struggle with managing my own happiness, let alone I now have responsibility for other people's happiness. That's just a losing proposition from a psychology point of view. But it goes with it, but it's usually a side effect to other issues rather than directly trying to make people happy.
Yeah, I can see that. And I've had this debate before, actually. But I think for me, what it comes down to is how you view the person. So if we're saying leadership and management even are about those people, and we're saying that they need to feel valued, but we're also recognizing things like the fact that they don't leave their emotions at the door, that the rest of their lives don't hit pause the second they're at work and then resume again at the end of the day at 5 o'clock or whatever. So if you're going to view them as that whole person, not just who and what they are when they're at work, then I think that sort of opens the door to, you need to do a bit more than just give them a beanbag or a pizza or whatever.
Yeah. Agreed.
I don't know where the right balance is, though.
Well, and actually it differs for different people, right? I mean, because,
that's fair.
I've spoken to a lot of groups and led training for teams, and there are people that are like very private and personal, and I'll take care of myself, and I really don't want to share anything about that. And then there are others that are quite open and value your interest in them. And so you have to sort of either read them or get input about it, because you can create problems either way.
Yeah, absolutely. Knowing your team, asking the right questions, asking any questions is a good start, I find.
Yep.
But if you're going to take on even a part of responsibility for a part of their happiness, even if it's just while they're at work, like you've got to know what makes them happy and what doesn't. And the same for what makes them feel valued and what makes them feel like taken for granted. If you don't know these things, and you've got to do that for every individual, as hard as that may sound.
Yeah, and that's really why I think our process has done well. I mean, we work with multinational organizations and then smaller companies and organizations. Is that it's a weird conversation to ask somebody, okay, if I want to show you appreciation, how should I do that? Most people say, I don't know, tell me thanks, and so you don't get much. And so that's where our assessment, which there's a form of it that comes with the book, but there's also, we've created forms that are sort of industry specific, because an act of service looks different in a manufacturing firm than in an office setting versus a school. And so we try to help specify the actions to help a person. And if you take your team through the process, which is what we do with teams, is then it sort of decreases the weirdness, because you're all doing it together, and actually creates a little bit of a fun discussion of learning how each person likes to be shown appreciation. And so using our inventory and then using a group process helps that go better.
Yeah, very cool. Well, we've talked a bit about the misconceptions already. Are there any others that you want to cover?
Just that, one is that culturally, at least in the US, when people hear appreciation, they automatically think of words. A compliment or praise, verbal praise. And what we found is that less than 50% of employees choose words as their primary language of appreciation. So if you only use that language, you're missing over half of your team. And also that it's not just saying thanks or good job. We do quite a bit of research and found out that one of the things that people don't like to hear, especially, is good job, because it's too vague, doesn't take much time or effort from the giver. And so we teach a model of using a person's name. And if you're writing it, you need to spell it correctly, the name. And then, tell specifically what you value about them, what they've done or a characteristic, and then why it's important to you or the organization or your client, because people often don't make those connections. And so that's really helpful that way. So words, and I think those are the main misconceptions that we address.
Yeah. No, the good job one is, I don't know, in British culture, that's almost exclusively taken as sarcasm. If we hear that in the workplace.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah. Good job. Yeah, well done.
Nice. Yeah.
That being specific is, that's key in almost any form of communication, I think. But this is a great example of where and why.
Yeah, for sure.
From research, or some of the research I've seen, they reckon at least half of the workforce is still remote working or some form of hybrid. So, how do these tools work in that sort of context? Again, touch in particular feels a bit difficult there, doesn't it?
We give a high five on the camera there.
Not quite the same, is it?
Yeah.
But,
No, we actually did research starting before COVID on remote employees, and found some themes. First of all, that people still want to be appreciated, even though they're working remotely, but each language takes its own form. But that a couple of things are important. First of all, that it's appreciation is remotely more valued from peers than leaders, because you expect your leader to reach out to your supervisor or manager, reach out and find out. But to have somebody, one of your colleagues, check in with you feels more intentional. Secondly, that it's about not just work, that it's about life, about them personally, because again, how's it going on the project? That's one thing versus, what'd you do this last weekend? Because with remote kinds of relationships, you don't have what we would call in the U.S. water cooler chats, where in the old days you'd go to the break room or in the hallway and talk by the water cooler. You don't have those chance encounters, so that you have to be more intentional about it, and that it's not just about their performance, but what's going on with their lives. And so, there's some tricks to it. I mean, let's say you want to catch up with somebody. One of the problems in remote work is you're not sure what they're doing, or you don't want to interrupt them or whatever. And so we just suggest that you send them a chat or an email and say, hey, I'd like to catch up with you for 10 or 15 minutes and find out what's going on. And then, really focus on their personal life. And it's best. I mean, some people can get into sort of an interrogation mode. You feel like, they're really digging deep, versus starting by sharing, hey, I did this weekend. I went to my son or daughter's football game, and, they did fine, to share and sort of model first about sharing personally. And same thing with quality time. I mean, just having somebody reach out and, realize that they're taking initiative, thinking about you and what it is. And for a lot of people, this relates to ADHD, people are visually cued. So if you don't see them or see something about them, you don't think about them. So if there's people on your team you want to remember, it's good to have some kind of visual reminder, whether it's a list of names or people's pictures that you see occasionally and you think of them. That's a helpful cue. Acts of service remotely, often it's offering resources. It's not necessarily that you're going to do it, although you may know that they're working hard on a project and you say, hey, what can I do to help out? But lots of times, especially initially remotely, you want to make sure that they have all the resources that they need, and you can ask about that to find out. And tangible gifts, again, it may be something like finding out where their favorite coffee shop that they take a walk to in the morning, and getting them a gift card there and sending it. So, and yeah, physical touch is different. Although it brings up an interesting point. We're learning that truly remote teams. I was hired by a major international firm. They had an international team that they wanted to teach to show appreciation to one another. Totally remote, 100%, all the time. And I said, I don't know if this is going to work, because appreciation really, I believe, is based in a relationship. It's a person-to-person kind of interaction. And these people had never met, and it's and it didn't work, to be honest. And I sort of predicted that. And what we found is that for team members to really feel connected, which is a big issue these days in our culture, connection with people in general, it's really good for a team to get together at least once or twice a year. Maybe not the whole team, but maybe, a department or a group, because, you're looking at me, you see this part of me, you don't know how fat or skinny I am down below. You can maybe infer some, and you're standing there and you look sort of tall and slender, but I may see you and you come out to be, I don't know what it'd be in centimeters, but 5'6", a short guy. And there's just a difference. And actually neuroscience is finding out there's a different kind of brain interaction that happens when we meet and communicate in person than video. Video is better than just pure audio, but and also you see people in different contexts, because like if you have a group chat kind of meeting, there's some difficulties of having just some banter and so forth. It's more one-on-one, versus when you're in a group, especially around a table or getting drinks or whatever. There's a different dynamic there that you get to know each other, and then that builds trust for people to work together better. So
it's interesting that you started that research before COVID. There must not have been many companies doing remote work at that point.
There was mainly in the technology sector.
Right.
So that's where it was largely, or they would have occasional remote workers, but not remote teams.
Right. And also, I mean, what you were saying about wanting appreciation, but for more than just work, I wonder, did that also persist after COVID? Because I feel like COVID was a snapshot when people were really vulnerable, were feeling isolated, probably
Yes.
more so because it wasn't a choice.
Right.
They didn't start that job on a remote basis. It wasn't what they got into originally. And then suddenly home and work are the same place. So I can understand that, but I'd be interested to know whether there was a drop off in that after COVID.
Well, after COVID, we still are after COVID, and there were some interesting dynamics going on about coming back to the workplace and pushback from people. And so there were a lot of other dynamics going on, but a lot of people really enjoyed. In fact, part of my team, even though we're fairly localized, highly valued working remotely, at least for the majority of the week. And so people sort of learned what they liked and didn't like. And there were just a lot of different dynamics going on, and it's still sort of up in the air. And now with AI entering and, sort of changes in how things are processed and job security. And there was a difference also of sort of people getting fired or not, whether they were remote or in person. Remote people clearly would lose their jobs more frequently than people who were showing up daily during the transition time.
Yeah, now I've heard a theory, I don't know how much the reality there is to this, that a lot of the return to office movement was by way of like a stealthy redundancy program.
Right.
To just get rid of remote workers because they'd refuse to come back. They'd leave,
Right.
They'd go and get another job. Now, I'm pretty on the negative, like opposing side of the return to office movement as a whole. But if that's true as well, I mean, that just makes it even more like cynical and underhanded even. Like if you want to get rid of people, make them redundant, do the right thing by them, give them some sort of severance. Don't force them into a position where they have to quit because you're being unreasonable.
Right. Well, but from a business point of view, the business leaders had tensions. I mean, there were buildings, huge buildings in New York and Dallas and LA that were just empty that they're paying, either to buy or lease. And so from a expense point of view, it's like, well, why do we have this thing that we're paying for and nobody's using it? So there was that tension as well.
Yeah, no, same in London. I mean, I have less sympathy for that, though, that argument, the whole real estate angle, because first of all, like if a pandemic isn't a force majeure that will get you out of a contract, what is?
Yeah, right.
And secondly, like you clearly don't need it. Stop spending your money on a swish building in London or wherever.
Right.
Put that money into something else. Like give people a pay rise and let them work remotely. That's what I would do if it were me in that position.
Right.
I don't know. I'm sure there's more complexity there that I don't understand or I'm choosing to ignore or something. But
well, there are leaders that like the face-to-face interaction and maybe group brainstorming process, which is harder to do remotely. And so there were personal aspects that came in as well.
Yeah, I'm sure there were. I don't know. So I think on what you're saying about like the international distributor team and having that meet up a couple of times a year, I'd actually say like once a month ideally. I mean, there's a cost aspect given how distributed you are, of course. But I do think, like, I see the value in terms of the interpersonal and the building the social connections and just like building a more sort of engaged team, I suppose, in terms of like all of the interconnectivity between people. And you're right, there is something that's lost if you've never met actually physically in the same space.
Right.
And it's interesting to hear that there's some psychological studies behind that as well. Having said that, on the other hand, as far as the work goes, I don't know. I think I don't think there's many work functions that you can't replicate remotely. Even things like the brainstorming. Like if you, assuming we're talking about like office-based jobs, not like a coffee shop or something where you've got a physical presence is crucial there, isn't it? But I don't know. I think it's a lot of times. I think it's a case of willingness to change, and the people in the leadership position or the business owners are not willing to change. They've always done it this way, and they're the employer after all. So what they say goes.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole sort of arbitrary mindset, I think that's where I have a problem with the way people handle this debate. I mean, arbitrary in any direction. If it's not a conversation, if it's not an attempt to meet in the middle and find like a common ground or a way of being flexible to meet the needs of as many as possible, if it's just a no, I'm in charge, I've set the rule, to me, that's not leadership and therefore isn't something you should be doing. Now, I, of course, have massive biases in this area because I've worked remotely now for 6 years and I absolutely love it.
Okay.
And the last time I worked like face-to-face, I hated it. So,
okay.
So I do have a bias there. But I don't know. I just think like even as a business owner, there's so many cost benefits to a remote team, to not having yourself tied to that one physical location that's usually costing you 5 or 6 figures a month probably. And there are so many other alternatives available if you can just be a little bit open-minded about it and a little bit flexible about the way work is done and when work is done even as well.
Yes,
I mean, that's another contention, isn't it?
Yeah, because, I mean, 2 thoughts. One is we forget, like at the beginning of COVID, I mean, if you remember, the technology was not really there, and it was painful at times to have a remote team meeting, and people not really understanding about their dog barking or, all the things about, being in your PJs kind of thing. But there was that issue. And then also just culturally, with this one team I worked with that had a very directive Latin American male leader, and then had team members that were from India, the Philippines, Hong Kong, those were females that the dynamics just were very difficult for them to sort of speak up in a team meeting. And so you have cultural issues as well. So it's interesting, and it changes over time, right? I mean, now the technology has improved significantly, and people are more used to it, so they're more willing. So yeah, you can argue both ways to some degree.
Yes, yeah. No, you're right, of course. And yeah, I don't know about the technology. I mean, Zoom existed. I remember doing Zoom calls back in like 2012, 2013, as early as that. I wonder if the technology issues that we had were because almost overnight the whole world was trying to use it at once.
Yeah, and also user knowledge as well. So.
True. Yeah, true. Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. I do find that whole thing around return to office and remote work and hybrid, it is a genuinely like fascinating issue to me. And
that reminds me of the issue of hours, because early on there was the issue of younger workers wanting to work, late into the evening, early morning. And if I would argue with owners, I mean, if it's customer service, when are your customers wanting to access your customer service? And if they want to be on at 11 p.m., then you should have customer service at 11 p.m. rather than, 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, just because that's the way you've always done it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, in the UK, there were, not like it is now, but there were like the first steps towards flexible working hours legislation happened before COVID. And I think, the customer service is a good example. The coffee shop again is another one. But if you don't have that limitation to the role about, certain things outside of the control of your business where fixed hours are required, again, like, why not just let people work when they work best? If someone sleeps all day and works all night, but they meet all the deadlines, the quality's okay or acceptable or better, like, why not? I don't get why people have a problem with that when they do. Like, it makes no sense. Why should you care when they've done it, as long as they've done it Yeah.
I hear you.
Does not compute. Yeah. But you do. I mean, people get really upset about that sort of thing. If you're not at your desk 9 o'clock till 5, you're not working hard enough.
I think that's an issue in the past in the U.S., generally speaking.
Okay.
That although there's some give and take in that, sometimes you want a team member to be available to you to dialogue and input, and so sort of negotiating a time and day to have that availability. But then I known in workforce owners that wanted you to be available 24/7, which is not realistic either.
Yeah. The worst one I ever worked for was a real clock watcher when it came to was I at my desk at 9 o'clock on the dot and did I stay until 5:30 at the earliest? But then when it was outside of work hours, it was the opposite.
Sure.
When he wanted something, if I didn't answer the phone, oof.
Yeah. Yep.
And you just, come on, you can't have it both ways.
Right. Yeah. There's been some generational learning over time.
Yeah.
So, I think that the point and partly the reason that our work has been accepted so well is that it really has both a structure and format that leaders can follow, but it also has a personal aspect so that we find out how each person likes to be shown appreciation. And through our training, we have an online train the trainer program, takes about an hour and a half to go through, that then allows people to use a training kit of videos, instructional videos, PowerPoint slides, handouts, sort of a facilitator's guide of how to lead discussions. That usually takes a half day for a team to go through and start how to apply these, because there's some weirdness about it. And sort of just say, if you wait for the weirdness to go away, you never get started. I mean, so it's sort of like you have to just take a step and acknowledge it. But it's becoming, I say this after 15 years of sort of, just plodding along, if you will, doing the work. I think leaders are now in the U.S. seeing the importance of it because mainly because of retention, that when people don't feel valued or treated as a person, they leave, and they have the opportunity to do that. And that's a huge cost. Turnover is the single largest non-productive cost to any company and can really affect your functioning, obviously. So keeping people has become a big issue. And sort of, there's a saying that's come out that appreciating your people is no longer a nice to have, but it's a have to have. You have to have a system to do it in a way that's meaningful. And I think that's important. It's not just setting up a program and you just run through it. I mean, that's what a lot of the reward recognition companies do. And they spend a lot of money, but they don't get a lot of result. That's why turnover is high and employee engagement's low and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, that retention point is, it's been on the radar for a few years now, hasn't it? But I'm pleased to hear it's being taken seriously now. Yes. I mean, it's not just the financial cost either. I mean, that's pretty significant. I mean, I've seen figures or estimates varying from like 3 times to 600% of their salary to replace them. But it's the things that you don't necessarily quantify as well, like all of the knowledge that they take with them that you don't know about until it's too late and they're gone. It's the little unseen bits of work or jobs that they were doing in the office every day that they didn't tell anyone about and you didn't know about, and that's lost. And it's all of those sort of intangible things as well.
Yes.
And those alone sometimes can break teams, break businesses. So, yeah, I mean, I'm glad it's being taken more seriously over there. I think we're a little way behind you in the UK, though.
Yeah. And France even further. So take heart.
Yeah. I mean, they have some pretty strong employment protections, though, that I don't think either of our countries do. So, okay. Swings and roundabouts, as they say. What's your best memory of being led?
I would say early in my career, so I was a psychologist, I was a social worker for a while, and I was a child protective services social worker, which has to do with child abuse and that kind of thing, which is a nasty foreign business and work. And it's a government agency, and so there's that sort of wrappings there. But we had a leader or supervisor who had been in the field for quite a while. And there's all kinds of external forces coming to bear on you as a child protective services worker. I mean, the family, the parents, grandparents, schools, medical, the community, what you're doing. And there's just a lot of pressure. And he did a wonderful job of protecting us from that and sort of deflected that. And he took that heat and then said, "You guys just go do your job. And if there's a problem, uh, uh, you know, we'll deal with it." And that was very freeing of time and mental and emotional energy to be able to stay focused on a difficult task with a lot of emotional dynamics that I didn't have to deal with the public aspect. And so I just really valued his understanding and commitment to do what was necessary. That was costly to him, I think, but it made it easier for us to do our work well.
Yeah, I have to be careful because I'm always saying one of the most important things a leader can do. So it's maybe like top 5, but
Yeah,
that whole concept around like protecting your people, the sort of the top cover idea, if you like,
yeah,
it's so important, and it's so easily overlooked as well.
all right.
If you're not paying attention at the right moment.
Yeah, and it's easy to say, you're getting heat from the top, and you say, well, you bring in the person who really handled that and let the heat go to them versus deflecting it some or supporting
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always say like leaders should take blame, not credit. But
Nice.
Okay, Paul, one final question for you. This is my favorite one, and everyone has to answer it because I just love hearing the answers. So it's called Leadership Heroes.
Leadership Heroes.
If you could pick one person, but it could be anyone you can think of, anyone you like, they could be real, they could be fictitious, they could be past, present, alive, dead, whatever, but someone who, in your opinion, would perfectly embody leadership. Ooh. So who would that be for you and why?
Well, I'll take a personal experience and example. I happen to be a religious person, a follower of Christ, and so I go to church and in communities, usually smaller communities that meet in homes and so forth. And early in my adulthood, right after we got married, we were involved in a church group where the leader just demonstrated tremendous character in that he. His first action always was to listen. He didn't, sort of, come down at you from the mountaintop or what. I mean, he listened, and when he asked questions, he was truly engaged and would ask clarifying questions so that he got the right message, if you will, and then would respond empathically as well as encouraging. Usually you're sharing some sort of challenge or struggle, and you just would be encouraging and point out what you were doing well and encourage you that way. And I find that characteristic both of listening listening for meaning versus just going through the process, and then responding in a supportive way to be fairly rare, I think, in leadership. And then he would also tied together with sort of core concepts of what was, at the mission of the group. And so I think that can happen in business as well, is that you listen to your people, you make sure you hear really what the issue or concern they have is, be encouraging about it, and then tie it to the mission of your organization. So, yeah, I thought about that.
That's a really nice example, actually. And yeah, I like, so we hear a lot about active listening, and that feels a bit gimmicky and buzz phrase to me. So I prefer the way you phrased it, which is listen for meaning, rather than just hear them stop talking and know it's your turn.
Right. Yeah. And I trained master's level counselors in active listening, and the listening for meaning is that you hear both the content, the facts, and then their feeling response to it, and understand the connection. Lots of times, listeners, we may hear either the facts or the feeling, but we don't connect them correctly. And a lot of people infer the wrong content for the feeling. Like, let's say they're frustrated and we hear this and say, well, you're frustrated because they didn't do this, which actually maybe wasn't what they're really frustrated about. So getting those two connected is where meaning comes. So.
Absolutely. And the meaning doesn't always align with the words either, does it? I mean,
right.
I've given one great example earlier of the sarcasm from British culture, but there's another one like, how are you feeling today? Fine. If you ever hear the word fine, they are definitely not fine.
Okay. That's good to know. I'll put that in my memory there. So, okay.
Yeah. Unless they're smiling when they say it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's things like that, isn't it? Like, you have to have the cultural context, the context of the individuals. Like, you've got to be able to read the emotions a little bit beyond the words.
Right.
And I think that's such a powerful skill for leaders too. Well, Paul, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great getting to know you a little bit and having this conversation.
Yeah.
One final thing I will ask you, if anyone in the audience would like to learn more about you or the work that you do, perhaps get their hands on a book or a training material or something, where can they go? What are the websites and so on?
Yeah, so our sort of home ship website is appreciationatwork.com, and it's the word at, not the at sign, so appreciationatwork.com. And they will have sections there on the assessment, on the book, and I have other books too about toxic workplaces as well, and then training materials and just all kinds of resources. So yeah, that'd be the place to go.
Lovely. Well, I'll pop that link down in the show notes as well so everyone can find it easily. And that's all we've got time for. Thank you again so much for being with us today.
Cool. Thank you. Enjoyed the time.
Paul, thank you again so much for your time today. What a great conversation. Really dug into some very interesting, very cool intellectual aspects there of the psychology of the workplace, of appreciation. Really enjoyed that bit about the remote work as well and that flexibility piece. Really important conversation for any leader. Listener, viewer, if you would like to learn more about Paul, do visit those links in the show notes. Reach out to him. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. And as always, my own details are down there as well. If you are one of those new leaders who's feeling a bit isolated right now, you're worried about your knowledge of leadership, you're worried about getting the most from your team, if you're feeling those imposter experiences, that imposter syndrome starting to tap you on the shoulder, and you're not sure how to be the best leader for the context you're in, for the team that you are leading, then please do come and have a chat about leadership with me and perhaps join the Integrity Leaders community. Details to be found at leadingwithintegrity.co.uk. Do have a browse of that website. And if you want to learn more, there's a green button on the homepage, which will take you to the landing and sign up page for the Integrity Leaders community. And if you have any questions, queries, worries, stresses, or you just want to have a conversation about leadership and you're not ready to sign up or join anything yet, my LinkedIn profile is down there as well. So drop me a message. Let's talk. That's all for this week. Do join me again next Wednesday when I'll be chatting with my next guest, Kathy Eastwood, about the lies we tell ourselves as leaders, the habits that matter most, and her book and the E3 Edge. So if you want to learn more about what all that means, do tune in again next week. And until then, be a leader, not a boss.